The fourth 5 in this 5x5 model addresses the previous 2. I want you to come up with, what are the 5 stories of your life that illustrate those 5 skills that you've written down? What do I mean by the 5 stories of your life? Well, we're finding more and more that employers do not ask closed-ended questions anymore. They just don't. They're not going to ask you a question like, do you have good time management? If they were to ask you that question, you would just say, yes, I've got great time management. But in reality, they haven't told you anything, or they haven't asked you anything, and you haven't told them anything. No real communication has taken place if they ask closed-ended questions. They're not learning anything about you and about your ability. And they've gotten wise to that. And so they don't ask closed-ended questions anymore. They ask what are called behavioral-based interview questions. And behavioral-based interview questions are not really even questions. They are open-ended statements that require you and encourage you to do the bulk of the conversation, to do the talking. So if they're going to ask you the example might be, instead of, do you have good time management skills, they might ask you, tell me about a time when you had to meet an unreasonable deadline. Or tell me about a time when you had to work under pressure. Or tell me about a time when. Or give me an example of. Are these kind of behavioral-based interview questions. You can't answer that with a yes or no. Tell me about a time when you had to use good time management, and you go yes. You're going to stand out like a sore thumb. You can't do that. It forces you to talk. It forces you to tell stories, which is that fourth 5 of the 5x5 model. What are the stories of your life that illustrate the skills that meet the qualifications? Those 3 5s are tied together. The stories of your life. How do you tell a story? Many of us are not really adept at storytelling. We end up either pausing a lot while we think. We throw in the ums and the ahs and the you and the you knows and he says and she says without really being able to tell the story. And so good storytelling is an art form, but there's a certain science to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you or tell you the science part of it. But to learn the art part of it, it just comes down to good old-fashioned practice. Drill and practice over and over and over again until you learn how to do it. But the science of it is very simple. If you're going to tell a story, we call it the STAR approach because it's an acronym. S-T-A-R, STAR. And the STAR approach stands for this. Situation. Tell me the situation that you were placed in. 2, task. What was the problem or task that presented itself? Number 3, action. What action did you take to address the problem? And then number 4, result. What was the result of the action that you took to address the problem to meet the situation? So it comes together. Most of us who have not practiced this end up telling me the situation and the task, but they ignore the action and the resolution of the action. So they say, well, there was this problem that we had in class, and the instructor only gave us 2 weeks to do it, and he probably should have given us a month because it was so involved. And so, that's not the STAR approach. That doesn't tell me the story. It gives me the situation. There was a time when my instructor gave me a problem, and he didn't give us enough time. That's the task. But the action and the resolution are missing. So in order to tell a good story, you've got to have each one of those things in place.